Today we have my friend Daniel Aguilar. I would say I'm a longtime fan, first time caller for having you on the podcast. And for that, I apologize. And I'm glad that we were able to make this happen.
Of course, I'm glad to be here, and I think got on when I needed to be, and have been listening for some time. So excited to hear firsthand what we're going to talk about today.
You do you mind if I mentioned some of our history and our how we got to know each other? I
Please jump
realize that
right
might
in.
be natural. Like, why am I such a fan? Basically, you were joking before this is like, oh, the little swoop on your wall behind you kind of looks like the first edition of your website. And I was like semi flattered, semi mortified that you remember what it looks like. But you were one of the kind and brave souls to, I dare say, test out my services when they were in their fledgling era. It must have been like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
was.
sure.
I think it was definitely pre-COVID, so probably 18 or 19.
Wow. And
Yeah,
then I just refused to let you go, and I was like, "Will you be my friend?" So that's how we're here.
exactly. Yeah.
And your career has gone so many neat directions since then. Can you give a little Daniel in a nutshell? You live in Dallas. You
Yes.
have a long, fancy job title at a very cool company. Can you share a bit?
Yeah, sure. So name is Daniel Aguilar. I do live in Dallas. I've been here for over a year now, so I can gladly claim that. I'm a senior implementations project manager at Southwest Airlines. So I get to help connect people to what's important in their lives.
That's for sure. I am a longtime Southwest flyer. Even though people like to crap on it, I won't have any of it. I tell them to shut up in a very ungodly fashion. So I'm a fan of what you and your compatriots over at Southwest Airlines do. And one thing that in exchange for you remembering the nuanced details of my first website, I remember the nuanced details of how you described your personality 5 years ago. And so when Audrey and I were planning out this series on how to overcome the core career fears and challenges through the lens of each Enneagram type, I thought, I know one nine that I would like to talk to, and it was you. So, as we've been doing for all of the other episodes, in this grand finale, I'll follow the same structure of reading aloud what the internet defines as an Enneagram Type 9. I'll ask you what you resonate with and what you don't, so we can see how you uniquely fit or don't fit into this mold. Very interested in your individual nature as a Enneagram 4 over here. And then we'll have an ongoing discussion about how the core challenge of this personality type has potentially applied to certain career circumstances and how you've overcome those challenges in your career or personal life. So if that sounds good to you, I'm about to start reading off Google.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's see what our friends say in California.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'd call them friends, but um, Enneagram Type 9. Sorry, now I'm just laughing about remember when, what was their AI model that like would only produce like
Oh,
a
not
black
not
Santa and a
Gemini, but
black
it was a
Jesus?
few years ago, and it kind of went around on Twitter. It was
So funny.
yeah, that was bad. Bad.
People are like, oh, I see. Okay. Oh gosh. I think they've suited up since then, so
Yeah,
I
I'm
won't
sure
hold
a
it
lot
against
of hard work and thought went into the documenting that miss.
God bless them. Oh, by the way, could you come a bit closer to your computer? I think it's a little quiet, but should uh
All right,
should sort
how's,
itself out
how's
pretty well.
this?
All right. Enneagram Type 9, also known as the peacemaker or the agreeable, is a personality type characterized by a desire for harmony and peace. People with this personality type are often described as easygoing, empathetic, great listeners, supportive, peacemakers, mediators. Uh, and however, people with this personality type can also have some challenges, like difficulty setting priorities, because they're so focused on maintaining peace that creating structure in your life could potentially be difficult. I find that one hard to believe given that you're a project manager. So I'm waiting for your rebuttal on this one. Um, Over accommodating could be another challenge, like being too willing to go along with others to avoid conflict, making it hard to assert their own desires, and then finally minimizing problems. They could simplify problems and minimize anything upsetting. What do you think?
Yeah, um, that's great. There's a lot there. Um, Things that resonate with me. I think overall the positive side or the healthy side is definitely true, which is unique in my particular role in my current job. But I'm trying to think through my entire career trajectory of how that's played out. But I would say I definitely consider harmony and kind of like systems thinking whenever I'm approaching something. And so whenever people bring up an issue or a matter that needs to be discussed, like, you can look at what's right in front of you and think, oh, this is on fire, but it's like, well, is this actually on fire? Is this supposed to be happening? Like, there's always coming back to the larger table and wanting to tie all the dots together. So I would say that the harmony piece definitely resonates with me, but is a very unique trait to find in someone who manages projects because those are known to be a place where there's a lot of issues and
Yeah.
arguments and discussions. So kind of a funny meeting of characteristics there.
How do you handle that with, I presume in your job you have to push things forward, like you're pushing the project forward, but that seems, according to this very stereotypical definition of the peacemaker personality type, not a preferable, like that, more of a support or harmonizing, smoothing things over seems a bit more true to nature. So how do you handle having to push things forward?
Yeah. Um, I think that for me, it's coming back to the bigger questions of why are we doing this? Why do we exist? What's this for? And I think if I take the mindset that I just need to push more work on other people or get things accomplished, then that's not a very motivating place to be and causes a lot of friction. But when your mindset changes to like instead of what am I forcing on other people that may be unnecessary? Like, what action can I take for the benefit of others? So putting that in the right context, like, completely opens up the door to things where it's like I'm no longer imposing, I'm no longer like forcing or even like manipulating of people to get things done. You have to be very influential and look for ways to incentivize or coerce or just move things forward. And so for me, that's a helpful lens that I come to of, okay, how do we make this about others and not as much about what I'm feeling and what I do or don't want to do? Because it's a much easier question to respond to of, okay, these people need that information to have a successful meeting. And so like, what can we do to put that together? So that's kind of the question that whenever the email box is full and it's late in the afternoon, what do I do next? Where am I? That's what I steer by.
I think in what you just said, I would not be surprised if everyone wants you to be their boss. You sound like the nicest guy to work with. And out just to serve and be helpful, but also like competent. And, sometimes I feel that Christians are just like, oh, I want to make sure that they interpret always be loving as always be soft,
Mm-hmm.
when I was just kind of like micro agitating my small group this last week. I was like, no, speak the truth in love. I got
Yeah.
on my little campaigner box and I read them like Galatians 1:10, if I were trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And they were like, all right.
Hmm.
But I think going back to the description of your personality type, at least again, according to Google, you addressed what you relate to in the positives, which those are
Hmm.
all amazing traits. But what about the challenges? How do you or don't you experience difficulty setting priorities, over accommodating, and minimizing problems?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the with the what resonates in the nine and kind of the whole peacemaking bit is you want things to work together well, and so you're trying to take that wide lens of how can I get all these pieces to connect, and that's where that comes up of okay, if I focus on any one part, uh, then I'll no longer be thinking about how they connect, and will be neglecting kind of what your go-to is, and so I think there is those moments when you need to stop and say what's the priority now, what do we need to move forward on, and I think one of the other things they mentioned was just getting maybe too focused too,
Yeah.
and so that is for sure a challenge for me where I have to put structure in place that will prompt myself to be prioritizing, be communicating to other people what's important because not everyone else is wanting the wide lens. Some people just want to know what do we need to think about today? What do we need to think about this week? And so I'd say that those are also
Mhm.
true on my end. So,
If you're open to it, I think it could be so helpful to dive deeper into whatever structures you use to keep yourself and others moving and not get too stuck in the details. Because, oh my gosh, that honestly is like a lifetime of working out how to be effective in aligning yourself with what you know you want to or are meant to do and getting it done within appropriate time and budget. It's hard.
mhm.
So how do you handle that, especially through the lens of your personality? And what are the structures and tools you talked about? You could talk about methodologies too. It could be as granular, actually, that as you're open to sharing.
Yeah. So I mean, there's like high level things here, and then there's like super small tactical things. So like if you're an Edge user and you open a new tab, it's going to populate a bunch of different news and like articles and fun things for you to get lost and distracted on. I've replaced that with a browser extension that pops up and it has like a cool naturey background and it says, "Hi Daniel, what's the most important thing for you to do today?" Um,
Okay, yes.
and it's like, okay, instant clarity that I should be prompting myself to focus on like at least one thing. Because if like if you don't have one priority, then, or if nothing's priority, then nothing's going to be. So that's like just doing the act of writing that out, I think, especially with how much time we spend in a digital world where nothing's really concrete, grounded, is helpful to say, okay, this is what I'm going to stop and state matters today. Um,
Yeah. Do you do
so,
like a daily review or like the afternoon at the end of your workday, determining the next day's one thing, or do you do it in the morning? Like, do you have any habits around that?
yeah, I'd like to kind of at the end of the weeks on Fridays take a look at what's coming up and then give myself a cheat sheet for Monday so that like Monday morning, Daniel doesn't have to do the work of thinking what's important. He can just kind of start doing things. So that's helpful. End of the day would be nice. It doesn't happen as often. I think I'm more so in the mornings setting things, but again, keeping it small and where you're not going to be overwhelmed is important to me. A lot of times I'll just say, if there were two things that I could pick that got done today, no matter what, like what would those be? And if
Mhm.
you do that 5 times a day in the course of a week, then you're going to have 10 things done. And so while it may seem like, I've got tons of emails, people need help, there's my chats blowing up, like is if you can really pinpoint and focus on those two things, then yeah, that's great. And that's going to help you out. So but there's tons of other productivity things people can do. There's like interstitial journaling where
Oh, I haven't
you
heard
can
that. I feel like I've heard so many things, but what's that?
Uh, so like right now, it's late in the afternoon, and so you'd look at the clock and write down what time it is, and then put interviewing Daniel, and then you'd work for however long you want, and then when you either change tasks or at a cadence that you want to check in on, you'd like sit down, like write the time again. So whether that's every 45 minutes or just whenever you finish the tasks, and so you can it helps you kind of reason with yourself of like, oh, that thing that emotionally felt like it took an hour and was painful actually only took me 10 minutes. And it's like,
I love
oh,
that.
cool. And so that's like a very grounding practice that I'll sometimes use to help say, okay, where am I going? Am I making progress? And then if it's sitting on your desktop, you can look and say, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. There's 15 tiles on my screen, but I know what's happening there. And so I know I'm getting a little more into how I do work and how I balance kind of the nine values.
I appreciate
But I find that I think nine's in the body grouping of the Enneagram. Of
Oh
like,
yeah, it's been a long time since I've
yeah,
brushed
I
up
don't
on
know
that. Can
exactly,
you
but
describe is it like head center, heart center, or like gut or body center?
yeah, I think the last one's body and then head and heart. But um, whether or not someone's a nine, I would make a case to say that in this digital world that we live in, we're often in a very like disembodied space where like the laws of physics don't apply. There's shiny buttons. There's pages that never stop scrolling. And
Yeah.
so I find that for the important things, if you can make them as concrete as possible, it really helps me out and be grounded and know what matters and what's important. And so, um, yeah, even just writing down a paragraph of, hey, what am I doing right now? Like thinking on paper is a pretty cool thing, and that's why paper's been used as a tool for thousands of years because
Well, I think it'll
it's
stick
easier to think
around.
when you're not up here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's so good. And I like that you tied it to with the nine being uh, one that I don't know how to describe the body center type versus head center. Like you basically act or you make your decisions from your heart. If I think that's like a type four, I think, or your head and your body. I think making decisions in as grounded a way as possible and getting, I mean, grounded in terms of like not just tangible, oh, in my head, I have one priority today, but writing it down to integrate it and see it. That makes so much sense. I mean, that could benefit anybody, but I really like that in the context of this personality type. This might be kind of a funny exploration, but I want to venture out to try it. As Audrey and I have been interviewing people and who resonate with each of the types, I realize, and this is intentional, we sought people out who are feel like they're in a really healthy, mature place with their personal development and are, in the terms of the Enneagram, like integrated and on the healthy spectrum of how that type is said to show up. But I for all of us, I'm assuming I'm not alone. There was a time when you were at the start of the growth journey, and I know I didn't always like my personality type, and I felt like really at the whims of its weaknesses or my weaknesses. And the growth journey was really hard at some points. And at others, I wondered if I ever would be able to change or get out of certain patterns that weren't helpful at all. Have you had a time like that? It's okay if you've always been a perfect angel, but I wonder um, if you ever.
no, I think that the the nine especially may appear to not have that because people on the outside it's like, oh, you're so easygoing, like you're relaxed, like everyone's getting along well. This must be great. Um, but I think when I like look at other types and kind of see their strengths come to the surface, some of those stories come to mind, and then um, I think for the nine in particular, like being able to advocate for yourself and to put harmony, like the easiest path to harmony is just to like get your own opinion and preferences out of the way. And then it's like, cool, we'll have like less friction. Like I can be easygoing, like I'll be flexible, we'll move around this. But I think whether that's in like work settings or personal settings or trying to think through even how you want to steer your career, having to be honest about what you're interested in and what you want, and what you have to say, while it could still introduce like conflict and dissension, uh, can be really challenging. And so I think that's probably what nines or like myself would have the biggest issue with, because you're basically taking your favorite thing of things, keeping the peace, things going smoothly. Like if people aren't arguing in like a workplace is peaceful, it can be extremely productive. But at the same time, if people are not bringing up the conversations that they need to have that are important, then that's just a different kind of destructive. And so it's while trying to figure out how to foster the environment where people can connect and encourage each other, but also be real and honest. And um, I will try to think of a story for you, but I'm reminded of there's a company in San Antonio, which has many great companies. We all love HEB. For those
HEB,
of you who aren't
babe.
familiar, it's a wonderful grocery chain. Has excellent homemade tortillas, among other
I'm
things.
having some tonight, in fact. What?
Case in point.
You know you're a
Um,
Texan when.
Yeah. So across town from HEB in San Antonio is USAA. It's a big bank and insurance company, and there's a guy I used to run with who works for them, and he introduced this concept to me of healthy challenge. And it says, "Hey, I'm still on your team, but we need to say this." And like when I invoke the healthy challenge, like you're gonna know that hopefully that I'm coming from a place of um, assuming the best, but also wanting the best for us collectively. And so I think for me, that's something that's important. So um, in a in a prior job before this, I was doing project management in a different industry. It was in healthcare, and there was a situation where there was something we were working on for a new clinic that was opening up, and there was this like pretty clear verbiage in one of the contracts of what we were supposed to deliver. And I read it, and I was like, I don't know if we're fully fulfilling all these obligations. Like we're getting the job done, but I think there's a gap here in what we're required to deliver. And I was a junior at the time, and we're in a call with kind of upper level leadership and my project manager, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this is great." And I don't think there was ill intent there, but I think it was everyone figured, we met the high level requirements. This must be good, and they weren't acquainted enough with the details to see that there was a gap. It's like, okay, like this is important for us to talk about. And so I was like, I raised my hand. It's like, all right, like here we go, about to rock the boat. This is not fun. I don't like this. But it's like, no, we need to have this conversation. And so I got pushed back on several times, and they're like, oh, we think we're fine. We've got this. It's like, no, like I really think we should. And so um, I think that's something that was not present at all and had to be grown over time of learning to raise your hand and for it to be okay for your opinion to conflict with others. Like there are ways you can deliver that that don't go directly to your worst nightmare case in your brain where
Yeah.
everyone's gonna hate me and we're all gonna argue and then like we're never gonna speak again and then no one
Mhm.
will ever want to work here and like it's just it reminds me of Inside Out too where there's the anxiety that takes things way too far to extremes.
Yeah.
But so I think that's important. And I learned some about that earlier in my career. I worked in customer service for a while and was like lived on phones most of the day talking to people who had things they weren't happy about. And so you learned that there's a shape to conversation. And it's something that you can walk through together with people and still hold the tension, even if y'all are in disagreement. Because
Mhm.
um, I think a challenge that I've had or that other peers may have had coming out of school is it's like, what was your most common form of being assessed in college? Like what did they use for tests or like for knowledge review personally for you?
Oh, well, I was just going to say tests.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, so tests versus essays. It's like most of our submissions were on Scantrons. There's four
Mhm.
boxes, and
Little bubbles
you know
that I
you're gonna
love. It was so satisfying to fill those little bubbles in. You know
exactly.
you have OCD when
Yeah, make sure you don't go over the edge at all. You know.
yeah, never. Because then I was like, what if it doesn't get my answer? If I other people were like so messy and okay with it, but
Yeah. But it gives you four concrete choices, and that's not how life works a lot of the time. But I think if you're spending 4+ years thinking that there's four right answers to things, and you're going to think, okay, I'm going into this conversation, I'm not thinking as a negotiation that has tension and we can move and kind of flow and through, but they're either going to love it, they're going to hate it, or we're going to become worst enemies. And it's like, if that's all you allow yourself to work with, like you're setting yourself up for failure. And so I think learning how to kind of talk yourself off that cliff and also realize that if you feel strongly about something, that there's, especially for the nines, there's a likelihood that you should bring it up and let that be heard, even if you think that if you don't have strong grounds or whatever it may be, obviously use judgment. But I think that the nines probably know more and should have spoken up way sooner than they do. And find that it's like, oh, well, why didn't you say that 2 weeks ago? Everyone was waiting. So,
yeah,
um, yeah.
I
So,
I loved those stories. And these are exceptional points. I'm reflecting now that this is the end of this series that my takeaways, if I could share, is
please.
um, first, the ways to overcome our challenges. Well, the first way to overcome our challenges is to first and foremost realize that your principles can overwrite your feelings. You, like, by the grace of God, like, I mean, to me, especially through the difficult ones with prayer, can notice your initial inkling to go into a behavior that through experience you've said, well, you've learned is not always the most helpful way to go about things. Like everybody loves you for your trend towards harmony, but you like in work situations, you're like, I have like a, in some cases, legal obligation
Mm-hmm.
to complete XYZ tasks. And that requires me to bring something up that's uncomfortable. And for all of us, like, we're not victims to our vices. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it sounds like you and all the rest of us in our own stories, like I did the episode for the four, um, noticed, okay, here's what I want to do. I can appreciate how that serves me well and why God created me that way in a decent variety of circumstances. But I believe there's something better and more loving to others, more honoring to God to be done here. Or selfishly, I just don't want to keep on suffering the consequences of staying in this weakness pattern. And you can make a different decision, and it's going to be harder at first, but then over time, we gain exposure to the things we fear and get more evidence through our eyeballs that it turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there was friction as a result of what you did, it was overall worth it to still proceed. And so I feel like my closing encouragement to listeners, if they happen to bounce around and listen to all of the personality type episodes in this series, is, and particularly for the nines that are listening, it applies to us all. Just realize that through exposure to your fears over time, it'll get better. And then eventually doing the right thing, I think, can have the opportunity to start feeling good. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I think we become more integrated, mature, godly people and get to enjoy the strengths and uniqueness that we bring to the table while keeping a cautious eye on the trends that diverge into chaos. So
Mhm.
that's my takeaway. But what do you think? Like any encouragement that you would give to, let's say, a type 9 that's listening, that's feeling frustrated by maybe if they've taken like a back seat, or they're feeling like, particularly for this audience, things are okay or not great in their job, but maybe they're thinking, oh, I'll just change his heart. I'll just settle into this. That was a lot of scenarios. So
Yeah.
forgive me. You could go back to my initial question of any encouragement for nines.
Yeah. I think that for nines, my especially because the adversity to change, my encouragement would be to just try and experiment things. I think a lot of people think of your actions as like a chess match, and you always have to make the exact right decision. And like, if I move in the wrong place, then I'm done for, and I'm bound by this, whether it's your work circumstances or your current career or even your personality type of like, oh, I'm bound by this, and there's no flexibility. It's just like, I think my encouragement would be to experiment and to try and to give yourself room to um, not fail, but to try things and see how it goes. And so whether that's speaking up for yourself more, take a chance, and whether it's at the grocery store or in your next meeting at work, or give yourself just the opportunity to say, um, I'm going to try this and we'll see how it goes, and go from there. And that's a lot more exciting. And so I think that gives you room to build confidence and to get some real feedback of, did this work? Did that make sense? And it gets you um, out of being stuck. Um, so I think that would be my
I
word of
love
encouragement.
that. Here, here. Let's all raise a toast. That, I think, officially is the end of this series and the end of this conversation. To not be graceful about the landing, as I so rarely am. I'm such a like quick starter, like no problem. If you have an idea, let's go right now. But
Mhm.
landing, I'm still working on that. So
Yeah,
thank you for your
yeah,
grace. And thank you, Daniel, for sharing your experience as a fabulous type 9.
yeah. Glad to be here. This was fun to get to catch up, and I'm encouraged by the work, and hopefully there's some nines out there that can keep using their strengths, and then find some tools to work through the challenges that are intrinsic with how they operate.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you, so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice, so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.